Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. It is October the 14th, 2021, and it is 7 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and start our meeting tonight. So if y'all will bow with me, I'll lead us in our invocation as we get started here tonight. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this great, beautiful day that you provided for us. And Lord, just thank you for the way you love us and protect us and take care of us. Lord, just thank you for this great nation that we live in. Thank you for our servicemen and women that fight every day to defend our nation and our freedom. Lord, just thank you for allowing us to be in a special place here in Walker County. Lord, we just ask tonight those that are suffering sickness and illness that you would heal their bodies and be with their families, and we just lift them up to you. Lord, as we come to this meeting tonight, we just ask that everything that's said and done here tonight will honor and glorify you, and we ask for your presence and your hand on this meeting. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
If you'll stand, we'll pledge to the American flag and then to the Georgia flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And our Georgia state flag. I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag and to the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, and moderation. Thank you all. May be seated. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll of the board.
Commissioner Blakemore.
Present.
Commissioner Askew.
Here.
Chairman Whitfield.
Present.
Commissioner Hart.
Here.
Commissioner Stoltz.
Present.
All right, thank you. All members are present here tonight. Okay, board, you do have an agenda here in front of you tonight for our October 14th, 2021 meeting. You do have a page and just a little more than a page of a meeting. Just need to move it this time for approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we do have a motion by Commissioner Hart. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Stoltz. Any further comments on the agenda from the board? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. Okay, tonight we do have a couple of public hearings that we're going to go through. The first one is an ordinance number O-02-21. This is amending certain sections of Chapter 22 of the Code of the Walker County, Georgia regarding land development to provide for an effective date to repeal any and all conflicting ordinances and parts of the ordinance to provide, and for other purposes here on this. So at this time, there is a draft in the package, and just for clarification, we will be taking action on this later in the meeting, but this is just the public comment section. So in the draft ordinance that is in the packet, it's ordinance O-02-21. Anything that you see in red that's got a line through it is what was, I guess, recommended from the Planning Commission coming over to the board. And everything that is in the black font is what's in the ordinance that would stay. So I think you'll see kind of how that works as we're looking to amend some of this. So is there anyone here tonight that wants to speak about this ordinance? Yes, sir. If you would come up, please, and state your name for the record. We'll give you 5 minutes.
I don't have the fresh copy.
Your name, please, sir.
Gary Williams.
Thank you, sir.
Question I have on the section 22-403. Section A says a private drive, easement, or right-of-way utilized for access must be at least 50 feet width.
Okay, I see where you're at. Yes, sir.
Okay. What is, on a private drive, what is the purpose of a 50-foot width?
I'll speak to that. Just the 50 foot is the minimum width requirement for any road to be adopted by the county. It's to allow for the width of a road and for the easement for utilities.
This is a private drive. It wouldn't be a...
A private drive can be adopted if it's built to county specifications.
But if I just want to build a road to my house that I'm gonna build, being a private drive.
That's your driveway, yes, sir.
This is not pertaining to my driveway.
Not a single-family dwelling, single driveway, no, sir.
Okay. And the 50 feet far as, if we wanted to put 2 houses or 3, why would it be a 50-foot easement?
Because then you've got utilities that need to come out to you, so part of that's the utility requirement, and that's what's been recommended to come to 50-foot from 30-foot, because it just makes it safer for fire apparatus, emergency services, and those types of things.
Well, 50 foot's quite a distance. North Georgia Electric only requires a 40-foot easement. So I don't see
For
why.
overhead, yeah, for overhead.
Right. So, and that's 20 foot on each side of the line.
That's right.
And so I don't understand why you'd want to have a 50-foot. I mean, if it's for a fire apparatus, you know, say I build a house 150 feet off the county road, I don't see why you'd have to have 50 feet. I just don't see that. I mean, if they, you know, a pumper operator can't back down a 12-foot driveway, I mean, so I don't think it ought to be, have to be a 50-foot easement. I mean, a 50-foot on a private drive. I appreciate, you know, if y'all would look into that.
All right,
Thank you.
Anyone else that'd like to speak on this ordinance? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move forward tonight on our next public hearing item. We have a request for the estate of Marion H. Hutchinson II for a rezone from A1 agriculture to R2 residential for property located at 2563 Happy Valley Road, Rossville, Georgia, 30741, tax map and parcel number O-102-004. At this time, we'll ask the applicant if they would like to come forward and speak on this request.
My name is John Beard. I'm not actually the applicant. I'm the current owner of the property, and my capacity is the executor of the Marion Hutchinson estate. And I thank y'all for your time and consideration in advance tonight. By refiling this petition, which was approved once before, I just want to state for the record that we're not waiving our position that the property is already property rezoned to allow for this development, but we did so at the county's request to bring it back before the board. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Besides that, I would just cede any time to the applicant who has more details.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. I'm Emily Preston, and I'm here on behalf of Gateway tonight. Mr. Mandel sends his apologies. He had a commitment with his son that as much as he wanted to be here, that was important to him too. So I've got with me tonight Mr. Steve Meyer, who is our traffic engineer. He's the engineer who did the study that's in your packet. And I also have Mr. Troy Woodis, who is here to be able to answer any questions you might have about the building itself. I've also given you this printout that has some information. It has our site plan. Most of the information about the development would be on the site plan. If you go through on the next page, you can see how much of a buffer there's going to be between that and the neighboring residential. And there's also some renderings of what this project might look like, in addition to some samples of other projects that Gateway has done. I've also got with me tonight a copy of our letter, which has a lot of argument and additional facts, which I believe you've all had, and then a copy of all of the studies and other evidence that I've referenced in the letter, including market studies, the traffic studies, the property studies, the tax card information from surrounding properties, some tax card information from Catoosa County and other counties, some 911 call information. I'm not, which I'm sure you're thrilled to hear, going to go through all that information tonight. if I've done this enough and sat where you're sitting enough times, you really don't want to hear what I have to say. So at this point, I just want to tender all of this into evidence. I'm here once again to answer any questions you might have, along with Troy and Mr. Meyer. But I'd like to reserve any time I have for rebuttal, just in case, in the interest of efficiency for tonight.
One question I do have on your site plan buffer detail. Looks like, you've got a variance because the property is obviously not a square piece of property and the way your curvature of your property. But it looks like that most of your buffer setbacks are, looks like the closest is 133 feet. Am I reading that correctly?
Troy, do you want to, I think there's a few.
I see 142, I guess there's one at 113.
Yes, there's one.
That's correct.
So you're 100 foot plus buffer, and some of it, I guess, actually to the building, looks like.
From the buildings, it varies from 310 to 489, depending on which lot you're on.
So 300 plus feet to the building from the property. Okay, I just want to make sure I was reading that map properly.
Yes, sir, and the 142 and the 133 is the existing mature trees that are there, the existing natural buffer. That is going to stay, that is not being removed. So those one numbers, I believe, are just the treescape, correct?
That's right. We get from the property line to the treescape that's already there. Then we'll do our own buffer that is, I think, is required in your,
Okay.
and then 6-foot privacy fence also,
I think
along that property line on the back portion of it.
usually, for context, there's a 50-foot buffer. So that is a pretty substantial buffer.
More than double the standard. Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of the project other than the applicant? Yes, ma'am, in the back, if you would come forward, please. As well, if you would state your name for the record, please.
My name's Dana Cole. I live in Rossville, close enough to walk to the proposed housing development. So I wanted to address some concerns about affordable housing and point out some of its proven benefits. The most common worry is that affordable housing is going to make the value of nearby properties decrease. And this is based on two potential problems. First, people think the construction is going to be of poor quality or that it won't be effectively maintained. And this is reasonable, so the Board of Commissioners needs to make sure that any proposal has provisions for construction and maintenance that match or exceed those for market rate housing. A second concern is that this type of housing will attract residents of lower quality. This is a fear that usually doesn't get said straight out, but in anonymous surveys, those are the phrases that show up repeatedly. We don't want those people in our neighborhood. We don't want that sort of resident in our community. Hopefully, we all know that it's at best unkind to judge people as lower quality because they make less money. We know that greater wealth doesn't mean greater worth. We believe that each person, as a human being, is important and valuable. I hope we all believe that. The other commonly mentioned worry about affordable housing is it'll lead to an increase in crime. However, while research shows some mixed results, overall, both property crime and personal crime often decrease in and around areas with affordable housing. We often think of low-income areas and associate that with high crime, but it's financial stress in particular that's connected to criminal activity, especially property crime. So since affordable housing reduces financial stress, that might explain lower crime rates. Since people have better opportunities, they choose those instead of choosing crime. So safer neighborhoods are actually one of the ways that affordable housing benefits the whole community, not just that development and its residents. Another benefit is economic growth, particularly helping local businesses in a process called trickle-up economics. As Richard Burns explains in an article in Forbes, quote, "Those living in affordable housing are able to spend substantially more on nutritious food and on health care. Housing is the single biggest expense for most people and often the most worrisome. When low to middle income families know that they can afford their rent each month, it frees up their ability to spend more on other essential items. Additionally, when affordable housing properties also offer quality resident services, assisting their communities with health, nutrition, and financial decision-making, the benefits become evident in the area. We've seen this effect as more and more shops, restaurants, and healthcare facilities have opened in areas where the National Housing Project Foundation has properties, end quote. So as local businesses have this increased revenue, then they can expand. That creates additional employment opportunities, and the cycle continues. Then, as these new residents spend money on local businesses instead of on housing, that provides additional returns to the city and the county through tax revenue. Instead of stagnation and deterioration, we could be seeing expansion and prosperity. So to finish off, I want to emphasize that residents' concerns shouldn't just be pushed aside. The improvements that affordable housing offers don't happen through some kind of inevitable magic. It takes careful planning, guidance, effective management, and conscientious oversight. And as members of the County Board of Commissioners, that responsibility falls on you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is anyone else here that would like to speak in favor of this project? You're speaking in favor of the project. Okay, how many are here tonight that want to speak in opposition? You want to speak in favor?
No.
Okay, how many here tonight want to speak in opposition? So we've got 3, okay. Okay, Paul, you want to come up first? You had your hand up first. We'll let you come first, and we'll let the other 2 speak as well. State your name for the record, please, sir.
My name is Paul Page, and I live at 12 Rockbrook Cove in Mission Glen. I'm the closest house to the project, which I don't have a problem with the project. I have a problem with the traffic that you're going to generate in front of the school. Have you thought about the fact that if they have the projects being occupied and the kids that live there, how are they going to cross the street to get to school? Because they're not going to be picked up by a bus, I wouldn't think. They have to walk all the way down to the end and push something, stops all the traffic, then they can walk across and go on. You know, this has been a poorly thought out scheme that we have. And the other thing is, I have asked you, did you sign anything at the last meeting, a contract, and you told me no, that you'd signed nothing. And that's not what we're hearing from the newspaper and what we're getting to our homes, that you have signed things illegally at least 30 days prior to illegally approving it in November, back a year ago. So we're very much opposed. Most of the people in Mission Glen are opposed. We have a lady that speaks greatly against it. She can't be here because of COVID problem. Okay, so there's a few of us here, and we're very much against it. There are things that haven't been done by your office that came as a spurt. If you could even tell me, if it was looked up, that when you added Overbrook Cove to be paved, it was at the last minute, so you could make sure that somebody wasn't mad because you're going to put traffic on Overbrook. The traffic studies that you've done, as far as I know, and as far as I can find out, there's nothing that's going to be improved except a nightmare at that red light going out of town, at the corner coming from the school. And you've got other housing that's coming in the area. It's going to be a real mess. And I think that commissioners are voting tonight. I hope that they'll take into account that this thing should be defeated at the very first and let the chips fall where they may. And I think they're going to fall in the right place. I mean, I've read too many things saying that they're going to fall anyway. And we know where that's going to happen. So anything that you can do to appreciate, to kill this program. I don't care if you put it someplace where there's not traffic. Put it someplace where it's not a school. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, who would like to come next? Yes, ma'am. Come on up, please.
Keisha made these packets for y'all. I'm Angela Pence. So I'm here today to speak on behalf of the Mission Glen resident who, due to illness, cannot be here herself. While I am not a resident of the area surrounding the property in question, I share in the residents' opposition to the rezone and proposed development. The primary reason this rezone should be denied is that it would be in direct conflict with the legally adopted comprehensive plan and future land use map. The comprehensive plan and future land use map were created with the participation of the community and reflect the community vision and character for the area. They serve as the guide to the rezoning decisions. The property in question is listed as a county suburban according to the future land use map. The description for this classification provides development strategies policies which state accessory housing units or new well-designed small-scale infill multifamily residences to increase density and income diversity. Say that 5 times fast. The key phrase is small-scale infill multifamily. This means duplexes, quadplexes, accessory dwelling units, and the like. Most reference definitions of small-scale multifamily are between 2 and 19 unit properties. There is no definition or calculation of unit per net acre, which would classify the proposed 156 unit project as small scale. I would like to remind everyone why we are even here. Had Shannon followed the zoning procedure laws instead of denying citizens their due process rights, or had he at least followed the comprehensive plan and future land use map he himself adopted, then this issue could have been dealt with long ago and saved the citizens and developer a lot of time and money. This board has firm legal ground to deny the rezone as it is in conflict with the comprehensive plan and future land use map. Earlier this year, in a newspaper article about the Georgia Supreme Court denial of a developer appeal, the attorney for the municipality in question stated, "Challenges to decisions made in compliance with an existing approved comprehensive plan are rarely successful." That attorney also happens to be the backup counsel for this Board of Commissioners, Ken Jared. This board is vested with tremendous power and authority. But more important than raw power and authority, you each have the duty and the imperative to stand with the citizens and community as a whole. And you do. That is what you were voted to do. I hope that tonight you will do the right thing and represent the citizens, because you surely did not.
Okay, sir, I believe in the blue shirt.
Charles Hancock. Basically, I'm going to repeat what she just said for the most part, is the comprehensive and future land use is just not, the uses they're wanting to do it, use it for, is not in the future land use plan. And so for that reason, it should be denied. There's a lot of reasons why I'm here today, but that's the main reason. And don't get it wrong. And we'll address these other things another time. And it's mainly about you, Shannon. And just know this, that every one of you sitting up here today is going to be coming up for re-election. And we'll know how you vote. The whole Walker County will understand how you vote. And it's because everybody knows it was wrong for approving it. Shannon, you're not a sole commissioner. You was. We know what a sole commissioner does. We've seen BB. Now we've seen Shannon. Now it can't happen no more. And so all I say is this. If you support this man and us, you'll vote our way. If you support this man and us, you'll vote the way we want you to vote. And that is not to rezone the property. First of all, there's a lot of reasons, but I'm not going to bring them up tonight. Tonight, we're going to vote on this, and we're going to see where we stand. And I hope we don't run from a threat. We've been there. We've been there. Have we, Shannon? Have we ever been there with a threat? Erlanger?
Get them all the time.
That's right. We don't run from them, do we, Shannon? You took over that problem from BB, and you did a good job, but Shannon, you didn't do a good job on this. And so now we need to make it right, and we'll start with a clean slate, and we can go on. We cleared together, we cleared the debt that Hutchinson got us into, and we can clear this, but we can't keep going down the wrong road. Nobody wants to do that. You got to learn from your mistakes. And this is one that was bad, and it needs to be fixed. Don't worry about big money. We'll handle it. We'll do what we got to do. Walker County strong. And y'all need to believe it. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? Yes, sir. Ma'am, I'm sorry. Come up.
Thank you. Hi, I wasn't planning on speaking.
Please state your name.
Janice Williams. I wasn't planning on speaking on this issue, but from what I've just listened to and what I've observed with what's been happening, I do have a concern about it. We had already had the election when you signed to approve this, and I don't understand why it couldn't have waited until the board was sworn in before you signed to approve it. Signing to approve it the way that you did and when you did was inappropriate and it was wrong. But what we're faced with now is that if the remaining board members who didn't get a voice in it to begin with don't approve it, the taxpayers are going to be paying a minimum of a $19 million lawsuit, and it's Erlanger 2.0, and that's very unfortunate. So I see the narrative politically being Shannon saved the county from Erlanger, and then when the board came into effect, look, we got to raise your taxes again because we're saddled with this big problem. It was a problem of your making. When the last meeting took place for the citizens to speak about this, before they ever spoke, you booked a slot after the meeting to be on TV with the developer supporting it. So you had no interest in what the citizens were going to say about it. Your mind was already made up, and you booked TV time to go on TV to promote it with the developer. And I think that's very unfortunate also. My concern is the traffic and the water and sewerage. And I think in all of your planning in this huge stack, that's something that you need to consider for the success of your organization and what you're trying to put together. It's a problem. The water and sewerage is a problem. There are pipes breaking there all the time, and I think it's remiss on your part to just overlook that and move on, because it's going to be problems for your residents as well. And the traffic is a very big issue. Those are things that I think you all missed the boat on, in spite of all of this, that are problems that you're stepping into right now. And now we're being held hostage, where if we don't do it how you want it done and when you want it done, without the practical things in place for the water and sewage and the traffic, and regardless of what your statistics say, the people in this room drive that road and they see that traffic, and there are accidents there constantly. And the water and sewage is a problem in Walker County, period, but it's particularly in that area, and it's only going to be worse with that many more people using it. And I think it would be in your best interest to have a successful project to wait until those things are in place to where it is safe and it is practical, and you won't have the water and sewage breakage that you have now, rather than, because this was done unfortunately and inappropriately, and it was, hold the rest of us hostage that our taxes are going to go up if we don't do it now, when you want it and where you want it. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, at this time, does the applicant, y'all have any follow-up or anything additional you want to add?
Sure. I have a few things briefly that I'd like to address, and then I'm going to yield to our traffic engineer to talk about the traffic, because he's a much better person than me to deal with that. First, about the comp plan, I do want to say I do believe this development, assuming the comp plan was adopted correctly, which I haven't looked at all, so I won't speak on that, but this development does comply with your comp plan. Your comp plan says, in addition to small-scale development, that you also need housing opportunities. And it specifically says affordable housing is a need in Walker County. So we are fitting that need, and I do believe that we would be in compliance with the comp plan. You have to look at it as a whole and not just one little portion of it. In addition, as far as the water and sewer and the other infrastructure issues that are kind of general concerns that have come up, I will say that is what we call a generalized fear, and it's a legal term. And what that means is everyone's allowed to have fears, but it's not enough to deny a rezoning. And there are cases after case, and the Georgia Supreme Court has held a generalized fear without specific details and expert testimony is not enough to deny a rezoning. I'm not an expert in sewer and water. I'm not an expert in traffic. That's why I have hired experts. And I have hired, or Gateway has hired engineers and architects to develop their site plan. That was done by somebody who has experience, like Mr. Askew, who's a building inspector.
And what about the clock?
You're
Why ain't that clock running?
The applicant is not under a time restriction. Go ahead, ma'am.
So, although I appreciate that the residents may have some generalized fears, that's not enough to deny rezoning. We've got experts, we've got people who have studied this, that have done the science, that have done the data to come up with these plans. We are not going to spend $19 million on something if we think we're not going to have water, for example. So the comp plan we've talked about sewer and water. I'm not going to talk about what may or may not happened before. I think I've said I believe the initial rezoning was proper. I understand that some people here disagree with that, but I don't think that's a proper consideration for this zoning either, what may or may not happen politically. As far as traffic, I am going to yield to Mr. Myers because he is the expert and he can tell us how he feels about it.
Thank you, Stephen Meyer. When I did this, it was Meyer Transportation Consultants. I do a lot of traffic impact studies. In this particular impact study, I estimated the amount of traffic that would be coming during the AM and the PM peak. Now, in this particular instance, I estimated that about 50 cars will be coming out of the development in the AM rush hour. That's one car every minute, okay? And the particular traffic signal operation that's out there, it's an actuated signal, which basically it has detectors out there, and if there are more cars out there, it'll give more green time. There are settings within the controller that basically changes from yellow, green to red, that if it appears to be an issue with any additional traffic, that the Georgia DOT has engineers that can come in and adjust those settings. However, with the settings that are out there, the increase in delay per vehicle is not estimated to be more than 15 or 20 seconds. This is a very small amount for each vehicle. So with respect to this particular development, yes, there's going to be additional delay. No question about it. More cars on the street. But it's not going to be such that this will absolutely, what do I say, create Atlanta congestion at this one intersection. Okay, so with respect to the data, I'd welcome anybody to take a look at the report. And it's not anticipated to increase the traffic very much. Okay.
Okay, applicant have anything else?
I do as the owner.
Yes, sir. Please.
I've been working up with Gateway on this for right at 2 years now. In fact, a little bit more than 2 years. And I am absolutely, there was a reference to an agreement being signed. I would know of such agreement. I would have my signature on it. There's no agreement that's been signed. We're simply continuing to apply and to go through the proper procedures for this. To speak to the traffic for just a minute, the Gateway project was approved first. Then after that came the housing development that's 400 to 500 units. That's going to add more traffic. That was approved by the board, knowing that the Gateway traffic was coming. After that, part of this same tract that we're talking about tonight, if you look at it, you can't tell a difference, that there's a survey line through there. The front part was approved for commercial development, which will add even more traffic. That was done with the board's understanding that the other two developments had already been approved. So now, to swing back to the Gateway project and turn it down for traffic is simply not a position, in my view, that would stand up, because other zonings were approved, knowing that traffic would be there. Now, the least traffic generator of the three development being turned down for traffic just would not stand up, in my view, for under a challenge. Once again, we're still available for questions if you have them.
Board member have any questions at this time?
I came in late, and I apologize, I just got off work. Is there any way I can speak for just a
No,
minute?
we've already moved forward in our process, sorry about that. Okay, at this time, we're gonna close out our public hearing. We'll move further down our agenda. So, board members, you do have a copy of your minutes from the prior meeting back on September 23rd, 2021 at 7 o'clock. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve.
We do have a motion by Commissioner Hart to approve the agenda, or the minutes from the prior meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Stoltz. Any further discussion on those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay, at this time, we do have our public comment section. If someone would like to comment on anything, we ask you to, if you would, please, to limit your comments to things about Walker County or our county government in general, just due to the sake of time and the number of people that are here tonight. So if anybody has anything in general they would like to speak about, yes, ma'am, in the back, please come forward. I saw your hand first.
My name's Karen Bradley. I'm just going to strike on this, and y'all can say whatever you want to about it. There's an extremely highly reputable rumor going around from the budget of $13.6 million that a suggested $5.4 million be set aside for private industry, which isn't what these original dollars were set aside for. If you divide them, that amount, the 13.6 between each district, that would have each district having $3.4 million. This is for stormwater and road improvement, came from the state. In my district, which I live in 4, there's Martindale Road, which needs extreme improvement. Long Hollow Road needs extreme improvement. Several different areas on Little John Road. Little John Road itself needs it because we had a severe storm come back through several years ago. Still hasn't been improved. It's been, and Carlin knows about it. I've been texting back and forth. And it's been halfway fixed, but not fixed enough to when you have a trailer load of 15 rolls of hay and a tractor, meet another car. It's dangerous for either one of us. The tile there on Little John was damaged in 2009, was fixed, but however, all the rains that we've gotten since then has damaged it, and there's a screen dip there. On the bridge on Bronco Road and at Bronco Road Spur, that bridge is in very need of attention. There's a tile that goes underneath the road on Chamberlain Road right before you get to Little John that has stood in water for years now. And it's because of the sediment that passes through, and it's just sitting there. Between Bronco Road and, on Bronco Road, between Stanfield Road and Bandy Road, there's tiles, there's several tiles for driveways there that have been stopped up for years. When we have a heavy rain, the road is full of water, and if two cars were to meet, a car especially that's not familiar with that area, that could be a severe damage to somebody. Today, at 4:15, a tractor trailer crossed over the bridge on Little John Road. That's unsafe, one, for the bridge, because it'll fall through. The bridge has been there forever, but in the last few months, somebody met apparently another vehicle and hit the rails on the south side, and they're all warped. If they were to meet a tractor trailer, that's dangerous. That's just an accident waiting for happening. And this is just in my area, but if you deduct all those, if you fixed all those, how much will be left of that $13.6 million? That money goes fast. We have an engineer actually that is on the board that knows those dollars, and two of them that have known about erosion and sediment control plans for those that will also address your project. And it also be reviewed through a federal government agency that review those plans. So it's just not what y'all want. There is other areas. I've driven in that area, and that's not even my area, but it's a dangerous area. And those high school students, if anybody were to get hurt, I hope they sue the hell out of me.
Anyone else? Just
Excuse me. Thank you. I'm Sharon Gregg. I live in the subdivision of Overbrook Drive. You know, I'm not here to slam you all as a company. I understand you've put a lot of money and manpower and all that. I can sympathize with your part. I also can sympathize with Mr. Whitfield. Purposely, did he do that it passed without the right rules and regulations and everything that we were all notified? I don't think you did it purposely, but it was a mistake. You admitted there was a mistake in the meetings, that we weren't notified to speak and all. So, you know, when you have rules for any board of government, you have rules for our kids, we have rules for just about any workplace you have. If it's not in order, it don't go right. And I think this is why this is, it just didn't go in right order. Maybe the traffic's not a good reason, as you say, but I want you to look at this. This is my 17-year-old grandson's car at that intersection where he was almost killed. The traffic may not be a thing to you, and there may not be another accident there for 5 years. And I'm not saying that all of this just needs to be put on the traffic, but it doesn't make sense to us as homeowners. Y'all are supposed to be here for us. We have, I don't know how many signatures you have on the list now, but we desire that not to be there. Y'all are supposed to, y'all were elected to speak for the people. And the people's telling you that we did want it there and we don't want it there. And it's not to blame anybody, but somebody needs to listen to the people. That's why we elected you all. There was a mistake made, granted, and whose fault it was. I'm not here to blame or criticize or anything, but we, the people of that area, that subdivision, have stated we just don't think it's a good place. My husband's a pastor at a church down there, and I go around to the homes around the area with kids, trying to get them in homes. We need homes in our area. I think the rent that you're talking about, my opinion, it's still too high for our area, because we have a lot of the people that we serve around that community is not in, they can't afford that rent. They just cannot. The apartments, the Happy Valley apartments, and those that are base government, you know, they're based on their pay and everything. We need more of those. Now, where that goes, I don't know. I still wouldn't think it goes there, but I'm all in favor of finding some property or something for more housing like that. Because Walker County, whether we realize it or not, we're not a, we're middle-class citizens, and there's a lot of lower class, and I don't mean that because there's no class of people, listen, that I'll help build it, I'll help clean, I'll help do whatever if we get housing for lower income, that, because they need it and they deserve to be in a place that they can call home and that it look nice. So my part is not to blame or to, we do need the housing and everything. But again, there's always solutions for everything, but I don't think threatening it starts you out in a good way with the county. We're getting threatened to sue for $19 million, which would destroy Walker County. You would have to know that. But there's always solutions that we should be able to work together. But threatening lawsuits and threatening Mr. Whitfield that he's all this, and I voted for you, Mr. Whitfield, and campaigned for you. But I do believe there was an error, and that has to be corrected, whether it goes with you all, the mistake was made, and you all suffered the consequences on your spending the money and doing all that. But we, the people, have a right to speak, and we should have been given that right at the rightful time, and it may have still went through. It may have still went through, but there's got to be a working ethic that will work. We've got to discuss this and not just automatically just say, okay, a mistake was made, but you made it, and that's it. That's the end of the story. That's not the way when rules are broken that you do. You make them right. You make rules right, or people suffer because of it. Again, I understand the monies. I understand that you think traffic's not the real thing, the real problem, and it may not be. Like I said, my 17-year-old grandson almost got killed there, so it's a little personal to me on traffic. The secretary at Ridgeland High School lost her husband at that intersection. People coming over there, and it hit a motorcycle, and he was killed. So I bet, she would say that the traffic was some concern to her husband. So I just think there's a problem.
Thank you for speaking.
Okay.
Anyone else like to speak in our public comment time? Yes, sir, in the back, come up, please.
Again, my name's Gary Williams. Back on the what y'all be voting on tonight, I think there's actually 3 pieces to that puzzle. One is about the tiny homes. Now, I don't have a copy. I got this the other day, printed it off, so I don't have it. If there's a new revision, I don't have it. But my understanding is going to actually, let me ask, what is the distance from your single individual home that you could put a tiny home?
Mr. Williams, we talked about this today, or maybe a little bit ahead of ourselves, but what we discussed, Mark and I, and then Ron, we all discussed it together, is that a tiny home shall not be built within a 300-foot radius of any other resident home unless a variance is granted by the planning commission. So if you took that tiny home and drew a 300-foot circle around it, that's what we're proposing.
To be outside that circle.
You couldn't touch another house with that 300-foot circle again, unless it was in a certain type area where those homes were being developed in a smaller location. Correct, Mark? Is that what we talked about?
Yeah, I mean, you look at any, like in residential subdivisions, the side setbacks are 15 feet, so you can be 30 foot apart and have 500 houses 30 foot apart. What we're proposing is to give a 300-foot buffer to kind of separate and still give the option of someone who chooses to downsize and live in a tiny home, which is really just a smaller than 500 square foot home.
Right.
The tiny home is a name that's tagged to it. It's dealing with the amount of square footage required. And if you choose to live by the building codes that are adopted by the state of Georgia, by the Department of Community Affairs, which is the International Residential Code that we go by, if you get into the book and dig in there, to make the minimum requirement, you can live in a little less than 300 square feet, 350, and in those areas. And I'd have to have it in front of me and show you so by the rules, if you chose to live in a 300 square foot house, that's your choice. If that's what you want to live in, that's fine. As long as you can make the minimum requirements for human habitation, sanitation, and things like that. So What we're proposing is to give a 300-foot buffer, which actually is more than what's required for any other development or any other type of building in the county.
So if I've got a residence here, and I want to build a tiny home, I have to build it 300 feet away from my house. But you just said that you could, in a subdivision, you can, it's closer. So if my mother-in-law or father-in-law is disabled, maybe I'm disabled, 300 feet's a football field.
Let me help you out there. As Brian just stated, and what the verbiage that we're looking at is 300 feet unless a variance is requested and approved. So you can always, for situations just like you just stated, family, disabled, elderly, whatever it may be, you can always come to the planning commission and ask for that variance and go through the channels there. And in cases like that, I can't see why something reasonable would not be granted, but I can't speak to the future there, but that's what you would do, is you'd ask for a variance to put it close.
I understand that and I appreciate that, but I think if I'm on 4 or 5 acres, I shouldn't have to go get a variance. I ought to be able, if I can meet the building codes, the septic tanks and all that, I shouldn't have to go through all the red tape to do that. I should be able to go to the planning committee or go to the planning and get, do the proper paperwork and go on through it without going through the planning commission and then bringing it for the board. That's just, the way I look at it.
We had a lot of discussion on that. And Mr. Brown can correct me if I'm wrong, but last month they granted somebody a variance to put something close to a house for an elderly person. So that, like Mark said, they're very willing to work with people on situations like that. But what we tried to do with this, Mr. Williams, was get blanket coverage on this and allow variances to make people do things differently, because it's very hard when you start trying to word it so that it appeases everybody. In other words, we had to word it so that, like Mark said, if you had a subdivision where houses are 15 feet apart and they were $250,000 homes, you wouldn't want somebody to build a 500 square foot home beside it, because it would devalue their property. So that's why we try to kind of word that so that we could cover everybody. If there were situations, we'd look at them individually.
Okay, and one other thing.
The situation that you mentioned, that's a good example of a hardship situation.
Right.
And I cannot imagine that a variance would not be issued based on that. Elderly parent, elderly person, disabled person, that's what the variances are for. And that's a great example of a hardship.
And again, quickly, back on the 50-foot easement, the old ordinance code strictly was dealing with an easement, as far as putting houses on an easement, to my understanding. But the way it's worded now is talking about a private drive. And I've got a problem with that, because Section 22401, the heading, which is not on what I got off the computer off the county's website, the heading says no permit for structures without politically accepted and maintained access. Publicly accepted. No building permit shall be issued for a building or use on a lot which does not, and it talks about a private drive. That was not in there before, and I still don't know that I agree with it or understand it even, why it has to be a private drive, for a single residence.
It's a driveway for a single residence. That's not a private drive. When you start adding more, sharing that drive is when it becomes.
So this is not pertaining to a single residence at all?
No, sir. And in reference to your question about if you had 5 acres and you wanted to build, like Mr. Hart said, in looking at this and trying to amend and make some changes that would help work, we have to keep in mind that, and let's just use the number 50%. 50% of people may have 5 acres or more, but 50% may only have an acre. So we're trying to find some middle ground to get a buffer that would be substantial enough, but yet if you needed to come inside of that, you would ask for the variance. That's why that's there. Because everybody doesn't have 5 acres, and as Mr. Hart stated, you take some subdivisions that we have, even the subdivision Overbrook, Mission Glen, I'm sorry, I was calling the name of the road. But any subdivision like that, it's R1, if there's a vacant lot in there, somebody comes and buys it, and wanted to build a tiny house, everybody would be in here raising Cain about they letting them build a tiny house right in between their houses. So that's why we're putting in a buffer on that.
All right, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else like to speak? Yes, Paul?
I'd like to mention something that's a little bit off the wall. In here, at the planning commission, you can't hear, okay? And I hear fair. You don't have microphones in front of each of you. You don't have a microphone in front of the speaker. At the planning commission, it was terrible. Now, someone in their wisdom, out of the group, should make a plan to do the microphones and the recordings in a good public way so the people here can hear. But we can't hear sitting back here. Most of the people came up here and talked, they were talking to you. They weren't allowed us to hear much of it. And if you had a microphone, it'd be a little different. Just to know.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else before we move forward? Yes, sir, the green shirt. You would please state your name for the record, please.
My name is Adam Meglitz.
And I'm Frankie Hooper. I'm the executor of my mother and stepfather's property. They both passed away. And he and my niece are buying the property. And they were told that we need a variance or something for a driveway because there's 3 homes on it, but somebody owns a half acre on a corner of it. And they said we needed a variance for one of our driveways. Even though the house has been there for 40 years, one of them's been there since 1990-something, and the other one has been, the trailer's been there since 1986, I think. And that half-acre lot, nobody's lived there in over 40 years.
Have y'all visited the planning office in Rock Springs to have them help you with this?
Yes, sir. I went there last week and they told us about this meeting.
They said
and
we
they
had to
said
come down
that-
here and get a variance, or talk to y'all about a variance, is what they told us.
Where's it located?
Rogers Road, right off of Rogers Road in Chickamauga.
In Chickamauga.
Yeah.
Rogers off of, let's see.
It's 5 Points
Off
right
of
there.
5 Points,
Yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
yes,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay. Familiar, I'm not familiar with anything, what have you got there?
I've got a survey that's been done.
Can I see it just real quick?
Yes, sir.
Just to see if we can help you guys out a little bit, see what we're talking about.
See, the thing is we were told that we couldn't have a loan approved as long as there was 2 dwellings on the same property. This is the property that we're trying to buy, but we have this trailer here, and we need to get this separated, but they told us at the zoning office that they couldn't, there couldn't be more than 4 lots on one drive, and there's already 4 lots there.
I see what you're saying, okay. That's something that we're gonna be addressing, I think, that, as far as the 4 on a private drive, and that's a good example of why we're looking at changing some things, so if y'all will just bear with us, I think we can get y'all some help, okay?
Okay, all right, thank you.
Do we need to stay?
No, ma'am, you're fine.
You don't have to, you're welcome.
You're welcome to, but
Okay, my husband's sitting in the car. right
Okay.
now. But my brother lives in the trailer and he's disabled, and
yeah.
if we had to make him
contact
not
number.
be able to live there, there's no place he's got to go.
MEGLICH. And it's 423-718.
Okay, thank you. We'll see what we can find out and get in touch.
Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Anyone else tonight? Yes, sir.
Charles Hancock. I have a few questions, and one of the questions has been brought up or even talked about tonight is the water company. Pretty sorry. I know my water bills went up a whole lot. I don't know about anybody else's, but I know mine has, a lot. and it's not improved not one bit. Nothing's changed. I live in Mission Glen subdivision. Every time there's a break, no matter where, we have no water. But when we finally do get water, it's full of rust, mud, dirt, rocks, stops up all the faucets, but our water bill went up about 3 times. So I have to ask you a question. Where's that money going?
But what I'd like for you to do, we can talk after the meeting about the water because that's a separate entity from the county government. I would invite you to come to one of the water board meetings, second Tuesday of each month. But I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards about anything, water board specific.
Well, I thought we was talking about Walker County. Is this not Walker County?
Well, it is, but that being a separate board.
And that's something else too, Shannon. You don't need to be the chairman of the Walker County Water Board. Why do you need to be? Ain't you got your hands in just a little too much?
Well, there's busy days, absolutely.
Yeah, well, I understand that, Shannon, but our water bills went up, but nothing's happened for us.
And that board set those rates. The board's always voted on those rates. The water board, I'm speaking of.
Right.
So the water board sets those rates.
Right. And you're the chairman of that board, right?
Yes, sir, but I've never had an opportunity to vote on the water rates.
Nothing.
Not to vote on those, no, sir.
So who votes on the water, the prices that is charged for the water in Walker County? Because that's what it is.
The Walker County Water and Sewer Authority Board.
Are you on that board?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you don't have any input on it?
I do have input, but I only have a vote if there's a tie. And there's
Yeah.
never been a tie on the water rates.
Right. So but you don't have any input though, right?
No, I said I did have input,
Okay.
but I don't have an option to vote unless there's a tie. And anytime water rates have come up, it's always been a unanimous vote, so there's never even been anything close to a tie.
Okay. Well, I mean, what we're seeing here, Shannon, is that you're a chairman here, right?
Yes.
Here,
Yes.
you're a chairman there,
Yes.
right? There's a lot of unsatisfied people on both sides of that. Shannon needs to take care of that, so. And something else I was wanting to talk about too is just the mere fact that the reason why this should be not denied is simply because it was not in the future use of the land. It was not approved for this. This is for small places, up 19 to like 51 houses. And this is 156 houses. And this guy here that's got the traffic, okay, yeah, 1 car a minute, 50 cars coming out of a 156 unit complex. Ain't nobody believes that. He might have done it at midnight on Sunday, but nobody believes that. And none of these people live in that community. You know what else? Ain't none of them drive in that community either. None of these people's kids go to that school where they got to walk across that street to get killed because of where it's at. I'm just telling you, Shannon, there's too much going on, and I believed in you. You was voted for because of somebody sunk us. But now, Shannon, don't let us get sunk again. And I'm just telling you guys that you can make this right. You can make it all right. But you got to start tonight. You can't start next year. You can't wait for another commission to come in, and it will. But another question I got for you is why?
27 seconds.
Why would you or anybody else on this board approve or allow our Overbrook Drive to be paved brand new all the way through it, knowing they got holes all under it where the water leaks out? I can show you, and you know it. You can see it on the road. And it was paved over. It was paved over.
Thank you for your comments.
You want to answer it?
They did the repairs to the water line, and I'll check and see if there's any additional leaks. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to move forward on our agenda.
Right here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
I'll have to start off really fast because I only have 5 minutes. When we just heard the comments about the traffic, I appreciate that, and I certainly appreciate the legal degrees, everybody's education and expertise in their field. I would have liked to have heard from someone that is the water and sewerage expert, because if you look at the history with the problems in Walker County with that, that is something that you should be concerned about. But I also want to say concerning the traffic, that was personally insulting to me, and I'm an educated person as well, to say you're not going to get Atlanta-style traffic. We're not ignorant. We know this isn't Atlanta. A lot of us go to Atlanta. But there is a genuine concern for the traffic situation in that area, and that was a very patronizing remark, and it was inappropriate. But on the other side of that, it also tells me that you are very out of touch with who is actually driving and what's going on in that actual community. And for generalized fear, I appreciate the statistics and the research, but again, it is very out of touch with where you're wanting to be a part of. It isn't a generalized fear. These are specific incidents and specific concerns. They don't fall under the blanket on somebody's piece of paper that does nationally. We're trying to help you to fit in properly into our county, and those comments in particular were offensive to me, but I just wanted to share that. Now, my concern that I want to speak with you about, it's always animals, and it is animals. I bring it to you. I don't do drama. I don't argue with any county employees. You're aware of what has happened to me with some of your employees, and I did not engage with them and have the kind of issue that was cast upon me. However, there are citizens, myself included, every area rescue is included, that our shelter continues to block off of their page. Now, the reason that I'm bringing that up, and I can take care of me, we are doing a tremendous service for Walker County, even though the county refuses to work with us, absolutely refuses. We're helping Walker County, and that's what it's about, and we don't get paid for it. 2 citizens who are very respected in this county, I'm not going to say their names publicly, my commissioner knows, found a dog, did all the right things that are required by the law, posted on all the lost and found pages, contact the shelter, because that's where people go first if they're missing their dog. They're blocked. They can't. So our county continues, and I don't do personal stuff, but it's a personal decision to block people, and it's inappropriate, it's not professional, and it's not working with the citizens in our county for a problem that we have. So they, and this was 2 days ago, they went through all the legal aspects. Our shelter is full. They weren't asking anybody to take the animal on their dime. They're taking care of it, trying to find the owner, but they can't go through the proper legal process to do it because our county blocks them. It's just got to stop. I have diplomatically approached you about it. I've presented just the facts. It's not changing. It's petty. It's not professional. It's one thing if you don't want to work with people, but don't get in the way. And that's what's happening to citizens. It's happening to every rescue in this region. We're all blocked. And I don't do full-on rescue. I do spay and neuter, and I help rescues, but we're all blocked. And those citizens also send emails because they were blocked, and no one responded to the emails. So they're having to use their time. They're doing it on their money to find elsewhere to do something with this dog. And this is just the one specific incident. It's all the time, Shannon. And you're aware of what's going on there. I'm not addressing it personally. I'm addressing it professionally from a business for a service that we're paying for. Stop blocking people.
Can you give me their information? I'd like to look into that case with the one that you're describing. If you don't mind.
I can give you probably 100, Shannon. This is just the one that happened.
I'd like to look at that, okay?
Will you just look into their blocking people? Because it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter who it is.
Someone had a recent incident. I just wanted to look into that incident as well. But I made a note here.
My commissioner is aware.
Okay,
thank you.
All right, anyone else tonight? Yes, sir. In the back, please.
I just wanted to, Ray Marsh, I just wanted to clarify something. You guys we were talking about the tiny homes, and we used 300 feet as the offset from an existing home, but you have it listed here as 500 feet. I don't know if we just misspoke or what the opportunity was, but I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to clarify that for everyone.
Ray, the planning commission had come with a recommendation.
Right, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
And they had a 500 foot on one and a 300 foot on the other. And I
Right.
think that what we kind of thinking about is coming to a 300 on.
Okay, that's why I wanted to give you an opportunity.
Yes, this was a draft that they had
Exactly.
sent to us, and so we're working through the draft, and there'll probably be some changes to it. But thank you for bringing that to our attention.
No problem. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll move forward now to our new business. So, first item that we do have up for the board's consideration is the ordinance number O-0221, amending certain sections of Chapter 22 of the Code of Walker County regarding land development. So at this time, I'll open it up to the board members. Mr. Askew mentioned that we may have some modifications to this draft that you wanted to discuss.
I think we've got Mr. Hart, you've got.
Well, what we did, we're trying to make this meeting shorter, so we kind of collaborated on the phone and via email and talked about the tiny home data the information that's presented here. And we kind of made some suggested changes. All of us agreed on it. So I brought a copy for council to look at. And I'm not sure of the procedure here forward, if he needs to review that before we come back and vote on it. But basically to paragraph 1, there was no change. To paragraph 2, will now state all tiny homes built in an R1 zone must be site built. In other zones, all other zones in R1, meaning that allow for residential homes, tiny homes shall be site built or a residential industrialized modular structure. Neither are allowed in commercial or industrial zones. Paragraph 3 would go what you talked about, Ray. It would now say a tiny home shall not be built within a 300-foot radius of any other residential home unless a variance is granted by the planning commission. And again, Mr. Williams, you asked about that, but we kind of talked about that because we wanted to make sure that we protected people that in an A1, in an R1 zone that a tiny home might be built, but also if somebody built a tiny home community, that variance will be granted to allow that. And in paragraph 4, it would now say a tiny home built on a metal frame with wheels will only be allowed in an approved mobile home park following the guidelines in section 22-414 of the Walker County Municipal Code. Anything not meeting these provisions will require a variance from the Walker County Planning Commission. So I sat down today with David Brown and Christy Parker, and much appreciated for your help, David, and we kind of worked through that and tried to make this where it would fit all situations. So I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if we vote on that now or if we allow time for review and come back to it.
Well, you can vote on it. I would like, since I'm the one that's going to be making the changes, I want to make sure that I understand it clearly.
Okay.
So you've given me a piece of paper, which I appreciate, that sort of sets it forth clearly. And if you'll all just bear with me a second, because before you vote on it, I want to make sure I understand it correctly and don't misstate something, and then I think you could vote on it if y'all are all in agreement with it.
Okay.
So, okay. Now, your very first sentence there says a tiny home is allowed in all zoning except C1 and I. So would you like for us to, in the ordinance, specifically state that? Because the ordinance says right now that there are conditional uses in A1, RA, R1, R2, and R3, which does exclude C-1 and I. Would you like for me to put that in for clarification that it would not be permitted in C-1 and I? It's no problem. I think it's saying the same thing, and I just want to make sure that I put it in language that y'all desire for it to be in.
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea, yes.
Okay, so I got that one. And then under little I, it says no change. Okay, got that. And under 2, let me just see what the difference here is. All tiny homes built in an R1 must be site built. Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I think what you're telling me is with number 2 little I's there, that replace what's written there and substitute in what you have written. Is that correct?
Yes, and
Okay.
I think we did in that, based on some recommendations from the planning commission's meeting, add the R2 and reworded it some, I believe.
All right, sir.
But basically, in a R1 zone, it'd have to be site built, and in the other residential zones, it could be site built or modular.
Okay.
Correct, Mark?
Yes.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do on little 2I is substitute your provisions that you've given me for what is currently shown as little 2I. Okay, great. And then number 3, basically what we're saying there is that we're going to substitute that for what was shown as little 3I, which basically just changes everything from 500 to 300 foot.
Right, and the old 3I was 300 and 500 in certain places.
Mm-hmm.
Based on recommendation, we just changed it to 300 overall, 300 radius.
Got it. All right, and then finally, 4, let me see what the difference is here. Tiny home built on metal frame. Okay, so it appears to me that we do the same thing with regard to what you have on your sheet will go in place of what's shown as number 4, which I understand. Okay.
And just to add to that, so the reason we included this section 22-214, because, and I didn't know this, Christy Parker caught this today, but an approved mobile home has to be above a certain square footage, and a tiny home by rule can be below that square footage, so we included that verbiage in there.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I have it, and so my recommendation here is that I've got those changes, and y'all could go ahead and vote to adopt these, and then I can simply make these changes, and then what I would do is I would present it to the chair as the chair signs all ordinances into place, and we would date it for tonight. It will actually be physically done tomorrow morning, but it will have an effective date of as if it was done tonight. And I had these changes in advance, so I would recommend that procedure.
Okay. Everybody agree with that procedure?
Yes.
Okay, so is there any other modifications from the board members on this other than what's been presented by Mr. Hart? Okay, so any further discussion on this? Okay, hearing none, I guess it would be in order then if we had a motion to approve ordinance ordinance O-0221 with the amendments that were presented in writing by Commissioner Hart.
For only paragraph 1, correct? We're gonna do the different paragraphs separately? I'm asking, I'm not sure.
That was going to be my next question. If you have, this is only for
Okay.
number 1.
For number 1, right,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, that's where I was confused, because it's all one ordinance. I didn't know we needed to break this out, but we
Yeah.
can.
But I think that's a good idea. You could,
Okay.
for clarity purposes, we could go ahead and vote on this section 1. It'd be less confusing, I think, and then we can move on to section 2.
Okay, so we have proposed amendments to section 1 referring to tiny houses that's been presented in writing to our legal counsel. We have a motion to approve this section 1 with modifications.
Motion to approve with modifications.
All right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Stoltz to approve section 1 with modifications. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Askew. Any further discussion of the board at this time on section 1? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that first section has been approved as modified. Okay, so we'll go down to section 2. Is there any further discussion of the board on section 2?
I did not have anything on section 2. I'm good with it. I'm good with that. So I'd make a motion to approve section 2 of ordinance 02-21.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Hart and a second by Commissioner Blakemore to approve section 2 as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, section 2 is approved as presented. Section 3, following section 22-181, has the required road frontage, which currently now, in the existing ordinance in R1 and R2, is 100-foot road frontage for the first dwelling unit. The recommendation or the change here that's on paper is to take those to 75 foot of road frontage. Any discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion, do we have a motion to approve section 3 as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve section 3 as presented.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Askew. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second by Commissioner Blakemore. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, section 3 is approved as presented. Section 4, this gets into our private drives and some new verbiage there. Any further discussion on this?
Yes, sir. There are some sections here that we would like to go over. In the first paragraph, it mentions 7 separate single-family residential dwellings. I would request that we lower that to 6, and I would prefer to strike single-family and just leave residential dwellings.
Okay, so the discussion on the table is in that first paragraph to reduce that from 7 down to 6 and remove the verbiage single family and just leave it as residential dwellings by the striking of single family.
Yes, sir.
Any other additional comments on that?
I would like to address that, and we all have discussed that, and we may not agree on this, and that's okay, but I just want to bring this up. So it is currently 4 under our ordinance that we have now. And there's been a lot of discussion about changing that. I've talked to other surrounding counties just to see what they do, and just, you know, there's 8 counties that touch Walker County. Only one other county allows 4. None of them allow more than 4, and for different reasons. And I could go through all 8 of them, but for the sake of time, I will not at this time. But I have also talked to, one of the big concerns that I have about it is access for fire and EMS, and I've talked to Chief Hodge about that, and he had concerns about that. I've talked to Carlin Bowers, who I think is here tonight, about just maintaining these, because I think these things happen and they're a great idea, but over time, when people die and remarry and move, different people move in, they think, well, this is a county road, and they call the county, and it's not. I think Carlin gets a lot of those calls, and I've also spoken with John Logan, who has buses that have to get on these roads, and we will not maintain. Carlin has to go out and improve some of them at times with taxpayers' money. So that's the biggest thing that concerns me about raising it from 4 to 6. I understand I may be outvoted there, but I just wanted to put those concerns on the table.
I would speak to that. Think in the paragraph below, and I'm not trying to get ahead of us, but do address that on new, this is moving forward with any new private drives, and that they would have to be deeded on the deeds, recorded on the deeds of the houses on the private drive, so that someone does die, move off, or come in, their deed would reflect that they do have a responsibility of the shared responsibility of maintaining their own shared drive.
Point taken and point understood.
Yes,
I I'm concerned about who enforces that. You know, we have trouble sometimes people keeping their dog in the yard, yet we're gonna go by the house and tell them to put a load of gravel in the driveway. I mean, I'm not arguing for arguing's sake, but that's what concerns me about it, but I do understand your point, Mark.
Well, excuse me, so, and I would say, on something like this, that would be an ordinance, it would be enforced by county enforcement, whereas, like I said, we don't, private covenants and restrictions, we have those all over the county and subdivision that we don't enforce. Those are civil issues, but this would be by ordinance, we would be enforcing, we would be, if it came down to it, that's who we would have to, we would enforce that.
Understood.
And I addressed that with Mr. Gottlieb prior to our meeting. He had indicated that we could have that on the permit, that these folks are aware when they're permitted that they are responsible for their section of that private drive as well as the deed, I think we discussed, Mr. Gottlieb?
We did.
That they will also be responsible, and,
And I want to add something too. The gentleman and lady that came up and spoke and had the plat that they brought up is a prime example of why we want to increase it by just a small margin. They're in exactly that situation where they've been there all their life. They're trying to do something, and by that number 4 being limited there, it's prohibiting them in that situation. So that's kind of I think what we're trying to do here is to allow for certain specific situations where there be the need for, because our ordinance has been 4 and people have had issues to come and say, well, we would like to try to do this. And of course, the answer has been, well, there's 4 and that's it. So by the allowance of moving, and I think Commissioner Stokes, that was a good idea to drop it back from 7 to 6. You know, we don't need to try to stack them on there, but we want to have the opportunity if there are cases that are necessary. So just wanted to put that on record.
One question I have the board to make sure we understand, make sure we've not missed anything since you had a discussion of 6. If you look at that paragraph right under that, the second sentence starts out as a maximum of 7 parcels.
That'll be 6.
That also needs to be 6 as well? Okay.
That'll follow.
Just wanted to make sure we captured that.
What Commissioner Stokes is.
The one thing that I do call out, since the issue has come up about enforceability, is we all have had experience with private drives. And we all know that it is very difficult to have 6 or 7 or 4 or 5 people agree when it comes to road maintenance. So I want you to understand, yes, we can put that in the permit. Yes, we can have them put that in a deed. Now, in terms of enforceability, you know, that's going to be up to a judge. Because, for example, if we talk about maintenance, and one homeowner says, well, to me, dirt is fine maintenance. And another homeowner says, no, to me, maintenance means we need to put some tiles in, we need to put certain crushed stone in, we need to do certain things above it. It will become a matter of interpretation of maintenance. There's only so much that can be done. Yes, we can require that. Also, we will, deeds are prepared by individuals a lot of times, and we as the board of, or you as the Board of Commissioners don't always be able to catch every deed that comes through. Well, I'll try to speak with the tax assessor's office receives and reviews deeds and try to make them aware of that and see if there is language that's put in there. But it's sometimes, anybody can prepare a deed. It doesn't have to go through like a title agency or an attorney, and a lot of times when things get recorded, there really isn't a mechanism for always catching it. But I will try to speak with probably the tax assessor's office, the clerk's office. I don't know what they'll be willing to do in terms of trying to capture and make sure that language is on there. They tend to as long as a deed is properly signed, has a sufficient legal description, and is witnessed and notarized, the court clerk is not really responsible for making other legal determinations. Sometimes we do see deeds that don't follow ordinances. So, you know, we can put that in, and I do think it's a good idea to require it. I just want to bring to y'all's attention that may not be the absolute black letter it's going to be followed each time, but it's certainly, right now, we don't have anything that addresses
that was my point, is that
you know,
that's very, very
the
good.
more that we can do to try to inform the citizens of what's going on, because you're right, people who move into this area, and it's not just moving into Walker County from outside of Walker County. Walker County is a very large county. You can be moving from the north end to the south end and not realize that something's a private road when in fact it is. So we will try to address those as we can. Okay.
Another question, Mr. Attorney. So who would be the enforcing agent to tell them to improve the road? Would it be the road department or the sheriff, or how would that work?
Well,
in other words, if the road is washed out and one of the neighbors complained about the other neighbor, who would go out and enforce the road improvements?
That really, it becomes somewhat of a matter of civil interpretation.
Okay.
So this is something that I would have to give some more consideration and to discuss with our planning department, because I'm not sure that the planning department, you know, again, now we're into a matter of interpretation. Well, to maintain the road, what you and I may respectfully consider maintenance of a road, we may not GHOG or agree. And a planning commission person or an officer could still have a third interpretation. And that's just, I hate to say it, that's part of the ups and downs of having private drives and you know, more people off of private drives.
And like David, I think you made a very good point. In us trying to revise and make some changes, as things stand now, there's nothing to even, so by attaching it to a deed, whether we can enforce it or whether it were to become a civil matter, they would still have an instrument then to use to take to litigation.
Right.
If in fact we weren't it couldn't, they would have that tied to it, where now there is nothing, so you move on to a private drive, you're just there. So I think it's just kind of an enhancement too, to try to give a tool for people to be able to work together or to
provides accountability.
Yes.
Yeah,
It does.
I think when it all comes down to it, from a practical standpoint, it's going to be that we have an ordinance, and if somebody wants to enforce it, it's probably going to be between the individual citizens, but at least they have a guidepost to go by. You know, I don't really see our enforcement guys being able, because there's no clear definition of what a private road is. Now, on a public road, we have, for example, very defined requirements, and I'm not as well versed as Mr. Bowers is. I may not say this correctly, but there's top code, and there's certain composition of the road, and we do things different than private roads. So our planning officers, our code enforcement officers aren't going to have that same criteria to go by and say you're in violation.
And I think if it's done also at the permitting process, someone goes into this, they know exactly what they're responsible for. They know they're responsible for 1/6 or 1/5 or 1/4 of maintenance of that driveway. I just think they know it from the outset, and they know it once they get that deed, and there's no negotiation on that. So.
Any additional modifications, consideration of the board on section 4?
So So that I've got it, I see here that third line, it will be a maximum of 6 parcels instead of 7, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and before that, on lines 1, 2, and 3, no changes before that 6 parcels? Y'all?
They wanted to strike the word single family.
Oh, yeah, I got that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I meant to the next
The next line.
paragraph. Yes.
Yeah, it was just a change of 6 is what I catch.
Okay,
Hey, David,
yes.
where it says each parcel of property that accesses the private drive easement of right-of-way must be a minimum of 3, we want to strike that and put 1 acre.
Okay, so that is right at the end of line 2 and the beginning of line 3 where it says 3 acres, we're gonna make that 1 acre.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
If it was in an
Okay.
A zone, would it still be?
Any other revisions?
Does it say that in here?
No, but I think it's clearly stated. In A1, it's
No,
5. it's 5,
agricultural is
yeah.
5 acres,
Yeah.
period, but I think the reason we were looking at that is the possibility, with zoning, there's a lot of R1 and R2 and R3 zoning, and if you were in the R2 zone, to require 3 acres when you could literally build on a 15,000 acre lot, or a 15,000 square foot lot, I'm sorry, is kind of holding them hostage there. It's not, it's, the rules say you can build on this size, but if we're, to up it to 3 acres was kind of out.
So really, we're increasing it based, even looking at the zoning, it's
Oh,
still.
we're done,
more.
yeah, by what our rules are now,
Yeah.
yeah, we're increasing
Yes.
the amount of square footage required, because, like I said, and I don't know the specific numbers, David Brown can probably tell us, but on a R2, on sewer, what's the minimum, less than a half acre, somewhere around a half acre on R2 on,
Environmental health requires a half acre for septic.
so,
If you're on sewer, you can get with the 15,000 square foot per lot.
so, yeah, we're we're doubling the required minimum.
Should we add to the end of that, Brian, all agricultural, still 5 acres?
I don't have a problem with that. Like I said, to clarify it, because we've
Yeah,
kind
just
of
to
done
spell it
rulings
out.
prior to preserve the 5 acres in agriculture, so just to specify it on there as well, I
Just to add to the end of that, all agricultural is still a 5 acre minimum. Just to spell it out.
Good point.
Okay, now, you also, what we had discussed, so I need to put some verbiage in here about when you apply for a permit and also on the deed, it has to be, what specifically do you want stated on
I
those
made
two
some
items?
notes. I would just indicate that at the permitting in the deed, that the property owner will be financially responsible for their portion of the private drive, maintenance, repair, etc. Anything y'all want to add to that?
I think that's pretty.
Let me ask you this, because not all parcels have the same acreage. So if there are 6 parcels, and one parcel is 1 acre, and another parcel is 4 acres, is the division of the cost and the responsibility for the maintenance 1/6, or I assume not, it's not based on the acreage
No,
size of it?
no.
Okay.
Based on the amount, the number of the structures.
Okay.
Okay, you want to reread that?
Sure.
Part you just wrote?
All right, so I put down here, and I may refine the language, but basically that permits and deeds are to include a provision that each property owner has his or her proportional responsibility for cost of maintenance of the private drive. And I assume you're going to give me some flexibility in the wording as long as substantively I've
Absolutely.
covered the issue.
Yes, sir.
Okay, anything else of the board on this section 4? Any further discussion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're making a modification to section 4 from 7 to 6. We're striking single family. We're changing the next paragraph. We're changing it from 3 acres to 1. Also, there's another mention there of 7, taking that down to 6. All A1 will still be a 5-acre minimum. And then the additional language about the deed recording and maintenance of the private drive to be equally shared. Does that capture all the modifications, I believe?
That's what I have.
Yes.
Everybody good with that?
Yes.
Okay. So do we have a motion at this time to accept section 4 with those modifications stated?
I'll make a motion to accept section 4 with the modifications that are stated.
We have a motion by Commissioner Askew. Do we have a second?
I'll say.
I have a second by Commissioner Blakemore. Any further discussion of the board? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have one opposition. Mr. Hart opposes, but the motion does carry with 3-1 vote. Okay. Okay, the next item we have is a resolution R042-21. What this is, and I'll read this, but we have some conflicts in our upcoming meetings due to county holidays. A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of Walker County to amend the regular meeting calendar for 2021, whereas a resolution R-002-21 of the Board of Commissioners of Walker County established that the board would conduct regular meetings at 7 p.m. on the second and fourth Thursday of each month. And whereas amendments to the regular meeting calendar for 2021 is necessary due to meeting schedules for November the 11th, November the 25th, and December 23rd falling on county holidays. And whereas the board does not meet on county holidays but still desires to conduct business in November and December, therefore be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of Walker County, Georgia, that the regular meetings will be held at 7 p.m. at the Courthouse Annex 3 located at 201 South Main Street in Lafayette on the following dates in 2021 to replace the upcoming meetings that fall on county holidays. So the resolution as it's currently written states that we would meet on November the 18th, 2021, and then again on December the 30th, 2021. Be it further resolved that the meeting schedule for October 28, 2021 and December 9th, 2021 will commence as scheduled. So we will still have the October 28th meeting, still have the December 9th meeting, and then we will modify our schedule to the November 18th and the December 30th meeting. So that still gives us 4 scheduled meetings between now and year end. And then if we need to call a special meeting or something that comes up, we could, but typically in the latter part of the years, things typically slow down. So that's a recommendation that I wanted to present to y'all on this motion. So any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hart. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Blakemore. Any further discussion of the board? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, this resolution is approved, unanimous. Okay, the next resolution that we have is R-043-21, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of Walker County to establish a holiday calendar for the county offices in 2022, whereas Walker County is duly created, validly expressing political subdivision of the state of Georgia under the Constitution and the laws of the state of Georgia, and whereas it's been determined that the county has anticipated and planned for the closure of certain business and administrative offices of the government in order to observe a number of general accepted holidays that occur throughout the year, said holidays to be accounted for in a respective fiscal budget, which have been and or will be accounted for in both the current fiscal year budget, existing and further planned budgets, both of which will span the proposed calendar year. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Walker County, Georgia, does hereby create and establish the following calendar for county holidays for 2022. January 3rd, in observance of New Year's Day. January 17th, in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. April 15th, Good Friday. May 30th, Memorial Day. July 4th, Independence Day. September 5th, Labor Day. November the 11th, Veterans Day. November the 24th, Thanksgiving. November 25th, the day after Thanksgiving. December 23rd this year, in observance of Christmas Eve. December 26th, in the observance of Christmas. Be further resolved, the Board of Commissioners reserves the right to modify or change holiday schedules, to sustain other holidays for schedules, one, to award additional holidays or reduce the number of holidays depending on the need of our county. So resolved and adopted the 14th day, October 2021. This is done annually because some of these days float with the calendar, talking a couple of examples, Christmas and New Year's. This is a continuation of the 11 holidays that we have observed the last couple of years. So this is just recognizing those that change on the calendar each year and just making sure that we get this in our employee benefit guide that will be going out before the end of the year for 2022. Any question or discussion on this resolution?
No, sir.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Stoltz. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Commissioner Blakemore. Any further discussion of the board? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the resolution is approved for the holiday schedule. Okay, we have Resolution R-044-21, resolution of the Board of Commissioners to add a temporary material code to the fee structure set forth in the Walker County Landfill Material List and Price Guide. Whereas the board adopted a fee schedule for the Walker County Landfill on May 27, 2021. Whereas the board has the authority to establish fees for the disposal of various materials pursuant to the Walker County Code of Ordinance. And whereas the board desires to add a temporary material code, which will be identified as M3, to provide up to a loader bucket of mulch to be sold for $10 to provide for environmental and public benefit, whereas the M3 material code shall provide for up to one discounted loader bucket of mulch per customer while supplies last. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Walker County, Georgia, that the $10 fee associated with M3 be set on the Walker County Landfill Material List and Price Guide. This would only be for Thursday, October 21st, 2021 through Saturday, October 23rd, 2021. So just those 3 days. So resolved and adopted the 14th of October, 2021. What this is we do an annual mulching of all of our storm debris. As you well know, back last year we had our Easter storm tornado that come through, and we had an abundance of brush material brought to the landfill that we ground up. And so we have an abundance of mulch that we would love to have our citizens come and get at a reduced price through this time. We've not done this before. We just wanted to try this to try to get some of this out because we do have our scheduled vendor to come back this year and grind up the debris that's been brought in for the last 12-month cycle, so we need the space. And so this was an idea that our landfill director come up with and wanted us to present tonight to do this 3 days at $10 per loader bucket. And this is typically a $60, if I remember correctly.
$60 per loader bucket.
Usually $60 per loader bucket, and this gets it down to $10. So this shows you we've got a fire sale going on here if this is approved to try to get this cleared out to make more room for the amount of mulch that we anticipate that we need space for. We do recycle a lot of this mulch to a customer in Alabama, and with our new road tractor that we bought, we've been able to increase their deliveries at this time from 1 load a week to 4 loads a week. So we're taking 4 tractor trailer loads a week right now to Alabama, and they use it for energy, and we still have mulch. So this would help and give an opportunity for this time of the year, the fall, for people to do sprucing up around their house and get a discount to come get a bucket of mulch. So we have any further questions or discussions on this?
No, sir.
Again, this is just for a 3-day period. We'll try it and see how it works. All right, hearing no further discussion, do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Askew. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Hart. Any further discussion of the board? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, this resolution's approved. Okay, the next item on our agenda is request of the estate of Marion H. Hutchinson II for a rezone from A1 agriculture to R2 residential for property located at 2563 Happy Valley Road, Rossville, Georgia, 30741, tax map and parcel number O-102-004. You have in the packet here where this has been advertised in the paper. It was also discussed at the last Planning and Zoning Committee, and all that information is in your packet. So at this time, I'll open this up to the board for discussion.
I'd like to make a comment on this. I've sat and listened, been in several planning and zoning meetings and heard a lot of you folks come up and speak your mind and your opinions, and I appreciate that input. Having worked in the building inspection department for over 15 years in Walker County, I'm well familiar with the area and the surrounding area in that area that we're talking about. And I do know and have seen firsthand many times that there is a need for affordable housing in the area. I respectfully appreciate everyone's comments, and I know that tonight's decision, there's going to be people that are going to be happy and there are going to be people that are going to be sad. But I think that we have to look at this not only as a singular project, we've got to look at it as economic development and growth for the county. And that area, for all of our life, all of my life, my first job was throwing hay on Happy Valley Farm. So I'm well familiar, but it's not a farm anymore, and there's going to be other developments coming. So I'd just like to thank the folks for putting your attention to it. However, I feel like that there's been some misinformation and some stuff going around. So I just want to state for the record that I personally do know that there is a need, and there's not anywhere in Walker County, period, that has a larger and greater need for affordable housing than that direct area. So I just wanted to state that for the record. That's my comment.
Okay, any other board member have anything to address or say on this issue?
I would like to make a comment.
Yes, sir. Mr. Stoltz?
Yes, sir. I want to begin by saying I want to reiterate what Mark said. Thank everyone for coming, and I can certainly appreciate your passion regarding this issue. I just want to say, since our planning commission meeting, several things have changed, drastically changed. On September the 29th, our county received a 23-page anti-litem, a notice from Gateway Corporation's attorneys, basically an intent to sue. And I would encourage all citizens to look at this anti-litem online, read all 23 pages, look at it, have an understanding of it, review the ramifications of it. I personally have read the complaint multiple times. I had a discussion with our in-house attorney, Mr. Gottlieb, and we also sent this anti-litem to our secondary counsel, Mr. Ken Gerard, who is a law professor at the University of Georgia. And both attorneys gave us their legal opinion on this matter. And like it or not, the opinion was that Walker County would be in serious legal exposure financially if this project is turned down. Possibly millions of dollars on the taxpayer's back. And wanting to be a good steward of the tax dollar, I just cannot put the county in that level of jeopardy. That's my comment.
My comment would be, I respect the project. It's a good project. I think it's a poor location. I recognize the lawsuit. I'm sure this project will pass tonight, but I will not support it. I will stand by the people in my district. I campaign to be a voice for the people, and that's what I will do.
Okay. Mr. Hart, you got anything you want to add?
Yeah, I do. The property is zoned A1. I farm for a living. It's not a farm. You couldn't put a chicken house there. You couldn't run cattle there. You couldn't row crop there because you couldn't afford to because the land's so expensive. Walker County needs a housing. I mean, if you look around, everybody needs somewhere to live. And that area needs a housing desperately because people don't have places to live there. I do, like some, question the cost of it. I mean, if somebody's making $48,000 a year and they're paying $1,200 rent, that's that's before taxes, a fourth of their dollars going to rent, so I don't see how that works out financially. But I am concerned about the traffic. I am concerned that we're about to, if all these developments are done, we're about to put half the population of Rossville on a 3/4 mile stretch of road that's 2 lanes right now. I know there's discussion of improving that road. I know we can improve that road. We've got to first purchase right-of-ways. We've got to move water, sewer, gas, and power lines. And then we've got to move ditches out and build the road. And do we add a turn lane or do we add a turn lane and 2 other lanes? I don't know until we look at a traffic study that encompasses all the developments, not just this development. Because when you add, if you count all the developments and you figure the amount of people that would live in each one of those residences, we are really going to add half the population of Rossville on 3/4 mile road, about 2,000 people. So that deeply concerns me. So that is my opinion on that project, and I'll vote here in a minute.
Okay. Board member have any additional comments or follow-up? Okay. At this time, do we have a motion on this action item of the night for the board? What's the board's pleasure on this zoning request?
Motion to approve a rezone from A1 to R2.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Stoltz to approve the requested rezone from an A1 to an R2, an R2, from an A1 to an R2. The motion on the floor from Commissioner Stoltz. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
We have a second by Commissioner Askew to support the motion for the rezone from an A1 to an R2. Any further discussion of the board? All right, hearing none, at this time I'll ask the clerk if she'll call the roll for a voice vote.
Commissioner Blakemore,
No.
Commissioner Askew,
Yes.
Commissioner Hart,
No.
Commissioner Stoltz.
Yes.
Okay, at this time, we have a split 2-2 vote here. I'll make a couple of comments here for the final vote. I do appreciate everyone's engagement and involvement in this process. This is the way our government is set up to work, is for the people to be involved. I know there's a lot of concerns about the traffic. We are currently working with a traffic firm that will be presenting some solutions to us in the near future to the board that we will put out publicly for people to see what those solutions are. But all indications on the preliminary work that they've done, the traffic is solvable. It is a solvable issue in that area. We don't have the barriers of issues like a national military park or a rock quarry and things like that that would prevent you from doing something. So it is a solvable problem for the work that they've done on this over the last couple of weeks. And so I know there are many other concerns, but we do hear from people across our community, and there's a lot of concerns about the future of the county and the financial position of the county and the financial stability of the county going forward, and the responsibility that this board makes to take care of the taxpayers as a whole across the county in making sound financial decisions as well. So this is the first time under our new form of government that we've had a split vote. This is the first time I've had to vote on any matter at all of the board, and I cast my vote to approve this resolution or this request as well. So I cast the deciding vote to approve this at this time. So this will be marked as approved as submitted.
It's your fault that we would have to pay that.
Okay, y'all are out of order. Y'all are out of order.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay, we're going to go to our next item on our agenda, which is our Department Statistic Report. Our animal shelter is listed first. There was 97 dogs intake, 42 cats. We have returned to owners. There was 22 dogs and 1 cat that was returned to owner. Unfortunately, we did have to euthanize 4 dogs and 2 cats. Our code enforcement did 1,461 compliance inspections. They did write 18 citations and was able to close out 18 cases. Again, one of the new items we added a couple of months ago is the registered voters that were getting this information from our election office. They added 252 new registered voters to the voters roll in the month of September. Our fire department called for services, 206 calls for service, handled by 400 responding vehicles. They installed 5 new smoke alarms. Our roadside trash pickup was very active in September with 9,980 pounds of trash. We did not get our Mountain Cove Farm data. There were nights stayed in September. We just had people on vacation and didn't get that information, but we'll get that added and get that published on our website. Single-family home permits, it was 12 permits in September. Our media impressions were up with 47. We had 126 new followers to Facebook, 34 new subscribers to our newsletter, patched 469 potholes, and made 1,693 transit trips for people that needed transportation in our county. At this time, we will move into the next item on our agenda, which is our commissioner comments. We will be needing an executive session tonight, so before we go into executive session, we'll start with Commissioner Blakemore, District 1, for comments.
I just appreciate everybody coming out and getting involved. If I can ever be of any assistance to you in any way, please don't hesitate to call, text, email. I will get back to you. And if you need me to come out and sit down and meet with you or whatever, I'll be happy to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Askew.
piggyback off of Robert, I appreciate the involvement, appreciate the comments. Like I said, knew tonight was gonna be a tough night. I knew there was gonna be people that would be happy and that would be sad, but I still feel that in the best interest of the citizens of Walker County, that the decisions were made, and I appreciate the input. That's it.
Commissioner Hart?
Yes, sir. So 2 great things happening in District 3 this month, this next 2 weeks, actually, down at the Lafayette Rec Department in conjunction with the Lafayette Library. They're doing a story walk there on a fitness trail. So if you have a young family who want to get out and enjoy the fall weather, they have that set up. The Lafayette Library is very involved with that. The second thing is that the church right next door for you people in town, the Lafayette First United Methodist Church, is having our fall festival on Wednesday, October 27th from 5 to 7. We'll have hay rides and inflatables, and Robert Warlaw be in the Duncan booth. I wasn't supposed to tell you that. No, that's all. But bring your families out for that. It's a great time.
He's in trouble.
He's in trouble.
Again, I want to thank everyone for coming. It's certainly an honor to be sitting in this chair, and if I can assist any resident in any way, please, you can contact me. My phone number is on the website, email address. We live in a beautiful place, so let's have a good weekend and go out and enjoy Walker County. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Stoltz. Appreciate everybody being here. Again, like Mr. Askew said, we knew this was going to be a tough night. We knew there was going to be people that supportive of the project and some not, but I believe once everyone gets a full understanding of what we can do in that area and some other things that are being considered by other developers, I think people will be very happy with the long-term outcome and feel like we made the right decision tonight for the betterment of the county as a whole. This time, I would like to make a motion that we have an executive session to cover a legal issue. Also, we need to cover a real estate issue and also a personnel issue. It's going to be kind of a long one. So we have a motion on the floor for executive session for those 3 reasons. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second to motion for executive session.
We have a second by Commissioner Askew. Any further discussion of the board? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we will stand adjourned until we come out of executive session. Okay, it is still Thursday, October the 14th, and it is 10:35. We just exited our executive session, so I want to call us back to order. There's no additional further business from our executive session, so do we have a motion to close this meeting out and adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Hart. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll let the clerk work that one out. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.